Okay, welcome to Lesson 3. Now I'm just going to tell you up front that as we get into the Toulmin model, you're probably going to find this one of the most challenging lessons of the entire class. It can be conceptually very challenging to get your hands around this model, but it is important that we have an understanding of how argument functions. And this model is an ideal one to look at. And so don't let yourself get frustrated. It may take a little bit of time, maybe reviewing these lessons a couple of times to really get a handle on this. So let's get started. Now the Toulmin model is, as I said, a model of how argument functions. Many of you may have had like a Speech 121 class and you saw a communication model of how communication functions. Well, this is doing the same sort of thing. It was developed by Stephen Toulmin, a British philosopher, and is the most widely taught model of argument in today's speech classrooms, certainly, and even in philosophy classes. So it's a way of looking at how argument works. Now the Toulmin model has 6 parts, and of course you're going to be learning what all these parts are. But we divide it into what are called 2 triads. Now triad just meaning that each of them has 3 parts. The first triad that we'll look at in this lesson has the core components of claim, data, and warrant, the heart of the argument. And the other triad addresses some issues of underlying dynamics, and it's best just to save that until we get to that. Now the first triad consists of 3 parts: the claim, the data, and the warrant. And the visual layout you see here is the very common way that we lay out arguments, or at least lay out the model, to look at how things are functioning. Now first of all, the claim is, think of it as the proposition. It's the assertion that the arguer is advocating. It's what he or she would like their listener or reader to accept. The data consists of any evidence that's provided to support the claim, or it could just be other reasons given. So it's any additional information that is provided to give support to the other person accepting that claim is true. The warrant is the reasoning process that we use to connect the data and the claim. It's the thinking process used to affirm that the claim is indeed supported by the data offered. The warrant is the heart of the argument, and that means that we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at warrants, because this is really what makes arguments function. It's the turning point, and as we work through in the next few lessons, you'll really see how the warrant becomes a major issue. Okay, I want to give you just an example of how this first triad works. So my claim is I should wear my jacket, and the evidence I have is I look outside and I see it raining. Well, the warrant, the reasoning process that I use to link raining outside to wearing a jacket, is simply when it rains, I should protect myself by wearing a jacket. Notice how simple that warrant is. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's what throws people off about warrants. Often they are so simple and straightforward that you almost think, well, it can't be this simple. Well, usually it really is. Okay, so notice the simplicity of that warrant. Another example. I should buy the Sony boombox. Okay, I'm looking at boomboxes, and the Sony boombox is the least expensive of the ones having the features I want. Notice again my very simple warrant. We should buy those items which meet our needs for the lowest cost. And I think most of us would agree with that. But that's the reasoning process that allows me to draw that claim from that data. Okay, another example. I should study for my math test tonight. The data, I have a math test tomorrow, and I'm not confident of understanding the material. Again, a very simple, well-accepted warrant. It is important to adequately prepare for a test. So again, that's the reasoning that you're using to hook those two together. Now getting a little bit more specific about the claim, so the claim advocates a change of status quo. So now notice how I had those changes of status quo. I should wear my jacket versus not wearing it. I should buy this Sony boombox instead of not buying it or buying a different one. I should study for my math test tonight instead of watching television or going out to a party. So the argument claim is a statement of what you want the other person to agree to, and it's advocating a change of the status quo. It's a change of what we assume to be true. So the data consists of the reasons or evidence to add support to the truth or accuracy of the claim. So the first one, it was some evidence. I saw it raining outside. The second one, the evidence was that the boombox is the least expensive and it has the features I want. So in that case, I had 2 data points, you might say. The third one is kind of more of a reasoning, given that I have a math test and I'm not confident in my understanding of the material. And so it's kind of notice that's more of a reason versus necessarily evidence per se. So the data is anything you give to support why the claim should be accepted. And like I say, it can be traditional evidence, statistics, testimony, or examples, or it can be additional reasons or additional arguments. But it's still serving to support that claim. So then the warrant simply links the data and the claim. It states the reasoning or the thinking used to link those two together. So for the one example is when it rains, I should protect myself by wearing a jacket. Notice again the simplicity of that, and it's a general statement that we accept to be true. The second one, we should buy those items which meet our needs for the lowest cost. Again, kind of a general statement we accept to be true, an acceptable thinking or reasoning process. Finally, it is important to adequately prepare for a test. I would think that all students would agree that that is the case, that it is important to adequately prepare for a test. Of course, it doesn't mean that students always do it, but it is certainly something that we agree that has to be done. Now notice how in these cases the warrants are generalized statements, and they could really be applied to a number of different arguments. That's one thing about warrants. Warrants often are broad enough that we can apply the same reasoning processes in a lot of different settings. And in fact, you're going to see that there's really just a core group of reasoning processes that we tend to use. Okay, now to confuse things a little bit. Notice in the examples I gave you, everything was laid out for you, but it's very, very common that the warrant is implied. So for example, go back to my one about wearing a jacket because it's raining. We don't normally say, when it's raining outside, I need to protect myself. We just naturally kind of think that, and as a result, it's an implied warrant. So it's not understood, it's understood to be there, but it's not bluntly stated. Now the claim could also be implied. Okay, but now data is virtually never implied. It should be stated. The arguer should not leave us having to imply or to assume what the data is, but the claim could be implied or suggested. For example, when I say, I better wear a jacket because it's raining, the warrant, when it rains I should protect myself wearing a jacket, it's understood, but it's not bluntly stated.